What if I told you that one guy in one small office in New Jersey convinced thousands of regular people to hand over their life savings, and he did it all with a phone and a big smile? No hacking, no breaking and entering, no complicated technology, just talking, just lying, just pretending. That guy was Jordan Belfort, and his story became so wild that Hollywood made a movie about it. But the movie barely scratches the surface, because the real story, it's even crazier. Today, we're going to break down exactly how the Wolf of Wall Street scam worked, explained so simply that even a 5-year-old could understand it. We're talking stock fraud, fake companies, real victims, and millions of dollars vanishing into thin air. Let's go back to the late 1980s. Jordan Belfort is a young kid from Queens, New York. He's smart, he's hungry, and he wants to be rich more than almost anything else in the world. He starts out trying to do things the normal way. He gets a job as a trainee stockbroker at a big, respectable firm on Wall Street. A stockbroker, by the way, is someone who buys and sells stocks on behalf of other people. Stocks are tiny pieces of ownership in a company. When a company does well, the stock goes up. When it does badly, it goes down. Simple enough, right? Well, Belfort learned that business fast. He was a natural salesman. He could talk to anyone and make them feel like buying stocks was the smartest thing they'd ever do. But then, in 1987, the stock market crashed. It was called Black Monday. Billions of dollars disappeared in a single day. Belfort lost his job almost immediately. And now, he's broke, with no job and a dream that feels impossible. So, what does he do? He keeps looking and finds a new place to work. But this place is very, very different from Wall Street. He ends up at a tiny rundown office in Long Island, working for a company called Investor Center. Now here's where things start to get interesting. These small firms, sometimes called boiler rooms, were selling something called penny stocks. Penny stocks are shares in tiny, often unknown companies. They're cheap. Sometimes they cost less than $1. And here's the thing about penny stocks. They're mostly unregulated. The big rules that protect investors on the major stock exchanges, they didn't always apply here. Belfort walked into that office and realized something. He could make a lot of money selling these cheap stocks to people who didn't know any better. And the commission, the cut the salesperson keeps, was enormous. We're talking 50%. So if he convinced someone to invest $10,000, he kept $5,000. On Wall Street, commissions were only 1 or 2%. This was a completely different game, and Belfort was very, very good at it. He studied the scripts. He practiced his pitch. He learned how to handle objections. He learned how to make people feel excited, how to make them feel like they were getting in on something special. And it worked. Within months, he was making more money than he had ever seen in his life. He bought nice suits, he drove nice cars, and then he thought, why work for someone else? Why not build something entirely of his own? In 1989, Jordan Belfort founded his own firm. He called it Stratton Oakmont. Sounds fancy, right? Sounds like an old, trustworthy institution with a long history. That was completely intentional. There was no Stratton. There was no Oakmont. It was made up to sound legitimate. And that tells you everything you need to know about what was about to happen inside those walls. Belfort hired young guys, mostly in their 20s, with no experience in finance. He didn't want people who knew the rules. He wanted people who were hungry, aggressive, and willing to do whatever it took to close a sale. He trained them personally. He taught them a script so powerful that even the most resistant people on the phone would eventually say yes. How did the script work? Simple. First, you build trust. You call someone up and act like you're doing them a personal favor. You say something like, I only share this with my very best clients. Second, you create urgency. You tell them this opportunity is closing fast. If they don't act now, it's gone forever. Third, you handle every objection. If they say they need to think about it, you tell them waiting will cost them money. If they say they don't have the funds, you tell them to borrow. Always have an answer. Always keep them on the line. This technique is called high-pressure sales, and it's designed to bypass your brain's rational thinking. It makes you act on emotion instead of logic. Now, here's where it crosses from aggressive sales into outright fraud. Stratton Oakmont was running something called a pump and dump scheme. Here's how it worked. Step 1. Stratton Oakmont would secretly buy up a huge amount of shares in a tiny, almost worthless company. Step 2. They would then call thousands of investors and hype up that stock like crazy. They'd say things like, "This company is about to explode. We have insider information. Get in now before it's too late." Step 3. All those new investors buying the stock would drive the price up. Remember, when lots of people want to buy something, the price goes up. That's basic supply and demand. Step 4. Once the price was high enough, Stratton Oakmont would sell all their shares at the inflated price. They'd cash out huge. And then step 5, with no real support, the stock would crash, the price would collapse. And all those regular investors who got talked into buying, they'd be left holding worthless paper. Their money was just gone. This is called a pump and dump because you pump the price up artificially, and then you dump your shares on unsuspecting buyers. It is completely illegal. It is securities fraud. But Stratton Oakmont did this over and over again with dozens of companies for years. And the money involved was staggering. At its peak, Stratton Oakmont was one of the largest broker-dealers in the United States. They had over 1,000 employees. Belfort himself was reportedly making $49 million in a single year. That's over $900,000 a week. He was in his mid-20s, and with that kind of money came the lifestyle you've probably seen in the movie. Private jets, mega yachts, mansions, parties that went on for days. Belfort wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He was living loud, and everyone around him was too afraid or too happy with their own money to say anything about it. You can't steal from thousands of people forever without someone noticing, and eventually, someone did. The FBI had been watching Stratton Oakmont for years. Building a case like this takes time. You have to follow the money. You have to find witnesses. You have to connect all the dots. And this case had a lot of dots to connect. Meanwhile, Belfort was not making it easy on himself. He was laundering money, which means hiding where money comes from so authorities can't trace it, by funneling millions of dollars through Swiss bank accounts. He used his wife's aunt, a woman with dual citizenship, to smuggle cash into Switzerland. He bribed bank employees. He created fake shell companies, businesses that exist only on paper, to move money around. Every one of these actions was a separate crime stacking on top of the original fraud. In 1991, a Forbes magazine article called "Belfort, a Twisted Robin Hood Who Stole from the Rich and Gave to Himself." That article caught the attention of the FBI. Agents began building their case in earnest. By the mid-90s, the walls were closing in. Stratton Oakmont was facing regulatory actions from FINRA, which is the organization that oversees stockbrokers in the United States. Lawsuits were piling up, former employees were starting to talk, and then one of the most important moments in the investigation happened. A man named Greg Coleman, one of Stratton's top brokers, agreed to cooperate with the government, and then another broker flipped, and then another. One by one, the people Belfort had made rich started turning on him to save themselves. In 1998, Jordan Belfort was indicted on charges of securities fraud and money laundering. He pleaded guilty. He agreed to cooperate with the government and testify against former colleagues. In 2003, he was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. He ended up serving 22 months. As part of his plea deal, he was ordered to pay $110 million in restitution to the investors he had defrauded. More than 1,500 victims had lost money because of his schemes. Ordinary people, people who trusted a voice on the phone, people who thought they were getting a real chance to grow their savings, and most of them never got their money back. The restitution payments have been painfully slow and incomplete, which remains a serious and ongoing injustice for the victims. After prison, Belfort reinvented himself as a motivational speaker, charging large fees to speak about sales techniques, the very techniques he used to defraud people. He wrote 2 memoirs that became bestsellers. One became the Martin Scorsese film you may have seen. The irony is hard to miss. The man who stole from ordinary people became a celebrity for doing it. So what do we actually learn from all of this? A few important things. First, if something sounds too good to be true, it almost always is. A stranger calling you out of nowhere with a guaranteed investment opportunity is a massive red flag. Hang up. Second, high-pressure sales tactics are always a warning sign. Any legitimate investment gives you time to think, time to do your research, and time to walk away. If someone is rushing you, they don't want you to think clearly. Third, real wealth is built slowly. There's no shortcut. The pump-and-dump scheme that made Belfort rich for a few years destroyed the financial lives of over 1,500 real people. That is the actual cost of the so-called shortcut. And fourth, the system eventually catches up. It took years. It was imperfect. The victims didn't get everything back. But Belfort went to prison and his empire collapsed. Fraud doesn't last forever. Before we wrap up, this video is for educational purposes only and is not financial advice. We're here to learn how scams work so we can protect ourselves from them. If you want to invest, please speak to a licensed financial professional and do your own thorough research first. Knowledge really is your best protection. If you found this breakdown helpful, give it a like and subscribe so you never miss one of these deep dives. Drop a comment below. What scam or financial story do you want us to break down next? Thanks for watching. Stay sharp out there.